All right, welcome to Jon Bowne Politix, number 19. It is October 30th, 2018. Today, my guests include Blackpill's Devon Stack, who will be talking about his new book that has been released. And as usual, Virstyne Henry will pop in from TrutherTalk on YouTube. We will delve into Austin Mayor Adler's attack on Pepe the Frog. But first, I want to get down to Hillary Clinton's racist joke yesterday. So, Megyn Kelly gets fired. She discussed blackface, using blackface during Halloween, and how she felt like it wasn't a big deal. And she was attacked by the left, and they destroyed her career. I'm not a huge fan of Megyn Kelly, but in retrospect, considering Hillary Clinton's comments, which I'll get to in a minute if you haven't heard them already, it seems very pale in comparison. And the fact that Hillary Clinton is allowed to get away with what she gets away with just means that this country is being suckered. We're asleep, and we're being cucked by a woman who dresses like Kim Jong-un and will not go away. So, from the demonized folks over at PragerU, here's a really great explanation of why the Democratic Party is nothing but a party of cucks.
When you think about racial equality and civil rights, which political party comes to mind? The Republicans or the Democrats? Most people would probably say the Democrats, but this answer is incorrect. Since its founding in 1829, the Democratic Party has fought against every major civil rights initiative and has a long history of discrimination. The Democratic Party defended slavery, started the Civil War, opposed Reconstruction, founded the Ku Klux Klan, imposed segregation, perpetrated lynchings, and fought against the Civil Rights Acts of the 1950s and 1960s. In contrast, the Republican Party was founded in 1854 as an anti-slavery party. Its mission was to stop the spread of slavery into the new Western territories with the aim of abolishing it entirely. This effort, however, was dealt a major blow by the Supreme Court in the 1857 case Dred Scott versus Sandford. The court ruled that slaves aren't citizens, they're property. The 7 justices who voted in favor of slavery, all Democrats. The 2 justices who dissented, both Republicans.
Okay, so there you go. Everybody out there that believes that being a Democrat, that you're part of some kind of social justice warrior mentality, if you actually sat and reviewed the truth about your party, you'd realize that you were the biggest fool in the United States. I'm sorry to say that, because I've got a lot of family that are Democrats, and it's just become a party of people that cannot accept the truth, that throw up walls in front of any kind of discussion about facts, statistics, history. And I'm not on the bandwagon for the Republican Party either. It's a gigantic corporocratic paradigm, all tied into the Federal Reserve System that has been taking advantage of our country since 1913. Anyway, let's get to the fresh hypocrisy that Hillary just created.
What do you think of Cory Booker's, and you didn't comment on him, and you feel free
Oh,
to.
I adore him.
What do you think about him saying kick them in the shins, essentially? Start to get to that kind of political.
Well, that was Eric Holder.
Yeah, Eric Holder, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know they all look alike.
No, they don't.
Now listen to that crowd.
Oh, well done.
Listen to that crowd. Listen to the reaction as she sits there and smugly laughs after saying, yeah, I know they all look alike. Now, why would she say that? Why would a leader, potential 2020 candidate for president of the Democratic Party say that? Because, and I've got news for you, and I'm going to say it, and I'm going to back it up. All those social justice warriors out there that are behind Hillary Clinton, that hate this populist president that we have now, you probably want to turn this off now, because if you can't handle the truth, we're about to delve into it. Hillary Clinton is, dun dun dun, a racist. Now, why would I say that? All right, first of all, the reaction. Let's listen to that reaction again from the crowd of cucked Democrats. Now, instead of boos, just imagine that a Republican senator, congressperson had said this very same thing on that stage. there would have been boos immediately. There may have even been a riot. Really, I don't care one way or the other. I've got a sense of humor about racism, as most people should. You should have a pretty thick skin, no pun intended, living in this country and being an American. And why is that? Well, because we're mutts. We're a lot of things. The black people in this country are part white. White people in this country are part black, part Asian, Irish, Czechoslovakian, Filipino, Taiwanese, Japanese. You go out on the street, you're not going to meet a full-blooded, full-bred white person in America. You're not going to meet a full-blooded, full-bred black person from Africa in America. It's going to be a very rare thing that you do. Anybody that claims that the skin on their bones represents who they are as an American is just fooling themselves too, and they're being cucked. This country is being led astray every day, every minute, and it's not by the people you would think. That's because you're being led astray. All right, so let's get back to this reaction. So she said she makes this what would be considered a major racial insult. I'm not sure how this is acceptable at all to this crowd, but listen to their cucked reaction.
Yeah, I know they all look alike.
No, they don't.
They loved it. They loved that. One more time. Let's listen to the whole thing one more time, because this is what it sounds like when an internal racism is being freed.
Childish.
What do you think of Cory Booker's, and you didn't comment on him, and you feel free
Oh,
to.
I adore him.
What do you think about him saying kick them in the shins, essentially? Start to get to that kind of political.
Well, that was Eric Holder.
Yeah, Eric Holder,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know they all look alike.
No, they don't.
Oh,
well done.
Says, no, they don't. Pretty obvious how wrong that is.
Eric Holder,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know they all look alike.
No, they don't.
Okay. All right. That's enough of that. All right. So why do I say that Hillary is a racist? All right. Well, let's go back to 1996 and this unforgettable comment about black teenagers in America.
If we have more police interacting with people, having them on the streets, we can prevent crimes. We can prevent petty crimes from turning into something worse. But we also have to have an organized effort against gangs, just as in a previous generation we had an organized effort against the mob. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel, and the president has asked the FBI to launch a very concerted effort against gangs everywhere.
We've got to bring them to heel. Not only did she call them super predators, but she said, after that, she said, we've got to bring them to heel. That is a master-slave mentality right there in all of its evil glory. So let's listen to what Ice Cube, who could be seen as one of these, as the voice of the super, quote, super predator movement. You might want to defend Hillary and say, well, they are super predators. There are areas in the country where you can't go to, and, you know, because late at night because you might be killed. There are drugs being sold. There are people being used and abused by these gangs. What she's done is she's jumped the shark by calling them super predators. They're your fellow Americans. They're living in poverty. They're doing what it is, what they can do to survive. Meanwhile, Bill Clinton created more prisons and imprisoned more black men than had ever been done in American history. So here's Ice Cube's response to what Hillary said.
To call your own citizens super predators is pretty harsh, and and it's pretty big indictment. It's just like the term thug or hoodlum. It's just an easy brush to paint somebody with, and it's really not solving the problem. It's just making it worse because now you have the people or the authorities feel like, okay, now they're justified at how they treat these so-called super predators. And what is that? Who is that? I mean, specifically, who are you talking about?
Yeah, so she's generalized an entire group of people who may or may not be super predators, according to her definition, but may be caught up in a situation, maybe living in the south side of Chicago, doing an honest day's work, but appear to be one of Hillary's super predators, and now somebody from the local police or the FBI has put them in their sights. But it doesn't end there. Hillary's racism doesn't end there, and I probably won't be able to get to all of her racism in this segment. Now here's the full clip of this doozy she said with Mayor de Blasio, who's married to a black woman and feels that it's his right, the fact that he's married to a black woman, that he can actually say racist things. Because if you're part of a group, especially the Democrats, you're immune. You have a blank check. You can be a racist. The rest of us, if we're discussing like Megyn Kelly did, wearing blackface, it's a debatable topic. If I'm a black kid and I want to be Superman, is that racist? If I'm a black kid and I want to be Jesus, is that racist? Don't we have the history and the fortitude as Americans to accept the fact that we are a diverse community and to laugh at it? Again, humor is the highest form of intelligence. If you can't laugh at yourself and each other, then we're all going to end up in a gigantic riot, and it's going to be for naught. It'll just end this country. It'll end this great experiment. So here's Hillary Clinton and Mayor de Blasio at an event with the cast of Hamilton. I had to go and look this up myself. That's how behind the ball I am on being a racist. Even though being who I am and what I do, exposing the truth, everyone on the left would immediately call me a racist. But I got news for you. I'm not a racist at all. But here's Hillary and Mayor de Blasio.
Hillary Clinton is facing backlash today because of an off-color joke made by New York City's mayor. Clinton and Bill de Blasio were performing a skit at a political dinner alongside Leslie Odom Jr. from the Broadway musical Hamilton.
The mayor made a joke based on an African-American stereotype, but it fell flat. The New York Daily News has dubbed it Skit for Brains. Here's what they said.
Here's what they said.
I just have to say, thanks for the endorsement, Bill. Took you long enough.
Oh, snap!
Sorry, Hillary. I was running on CP time.
That's not, I don't like jokes like that, Bill. That's not funny.
Cautious politician time.
Okay, so it almost seems like that joke was set up. So de Blasio says, sorry, Hillary, I was running on CP time. He's allowed to say that because he's a Democrat and he's married to a black woman. So that gives him the right to make a racial comment. Well, what does CP time? What is CP time? It's colored people's time. And according to the Urban Dictionary, the stereotype that African Americans are incapable of punctuality and are chronically tardy in both arriving at and beginning events and functions. CP time. Another generalization of an entire group of Americans. Super predators, CP time. Okay, let's move on. I just want to delve into the hypocrisy for a second. Get another angle on this. Where Hillary gets up in front of, her 5 followers and claims that the rest of us are racist, that we're a basket of deplorables, or as Biden said, we're the dregs of society.
The names may have changed. Racists now call themselves racialists. White supremacists now call themselves white nationalists. The paranoid fringe now calls itself alt-right. But the hate burns just as bright.
She says the Trump...
I could be put into the alt-right spectrum simply because I'm trying to bring the truth, the American truth, to everybody, trying to expose the lies and the corruption and the hypocrisy. I'm, according to them, the alt-right, but I'm not the alt-right. Don't call me the alt-right. I'm not a white nationalist. My skin's white, although I'm not even going to go into all the races that I am. But believe me, I'm multiracial in my makeup. It's not even that important. I'm not Elizabeth Warren here. I'm not trying to prove to you that I'm another race so I'll be accepted. I don't care what you think. I'm an American. That's all that matters. That's all that will ever matter. Put simply, I really don't care what race you are, what sex you are. The only thing that matters to me is whether or not you're a complete douchebag. If you're a douchebag, then I got a problem with you. If you're not, then I don't. Maybe I should start my own political party called the Anti-Douchebag Party. Again, I'm making this claim that Hillary is a racist. Well, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. If you're unfamiliar with who Robert Byrd is, he's the longest-serving U.S. senator in history. He was a member of the Democratic Party. He served as a U.S. representative from 1953 to 1959, and at the time of his death, he was the longest-serving member in the history of the U.S. Congress. He served 3 different tenures as chairman of the U.S. Senate Committee on Appropriations. He filibustered against the 1964 Civil Rights Act and supported the Vietnam War, which was created on the pretense of a false flag, the Gulf of Tonkin incident. So this is an evil dude. Well, that's not enough. I mean, longest-serving congressman, filibustered the Civil Rights Act. Yeah, he could be a problem, right? It gets worse. In the early 1940s, Byrd recruited 150 of his friends and associates to create a new chapter of the Ku Klux Klan in Sophia, West Virginia. According to Byrd, a Klan official told him, "You have a talent for leadership, Bob. The country needs young men like you in the leadership of the nation." And Byrd later recalled, "Suddenly lights flashed in my mind. Someone important had recognized my abilities. I was only 23 or 24 years old, and the thought of a political career had never really hit me. But strike me that night, it did." Byrd became a recruiter and leader of his chapter. When it came to elect the top officer, Exalted Cyclops, in the local Klan unit, Byrd won unanimously. People would argue that Byrd later in life apologized for filibustering the Civil Rights Act. And I personally believe that we evolve as human beings. You make mistakes, you evolve. You learn from them, you move on. Or you don't. You just keep making the same mistakes. It's incredibly hypocritical that the Democrats, who are supported by Silicon Valley, which updates software on a regular basis, users make complaints about the software, or they catch a bug that they need to fix, and it's updated. Well, people are updated. Some people aren't updated because they die, and you can't be updated anymore. But as you grow older, you are updated. And the reason I bring this up is because the Democratic Party went after Kavanaugh and his high school reputation, somebody that has spent his adult life on the Court of Appeals and should be judged by that record instead of what he maybe did in high school, which was all a sham anyway. So why do I bring up Robert Byrd? Well, when Robert Byrd passed away, this is what Hillary Clinton said.
"Today our country has lost a true American original, my friend and mentor, Robert C. Byrd. Senator Byrd was a man of surpassing eloquence and nobility, and I will remember him for many things, but most of all, for a heartfelt comment he made to me in the dark days following the attack on our country on 9/11. My state of New York was reeling, and we were scrambling to provide support and relief. Think of me as the 3rd senator from New York," he said.
Yeah, he's his nobility, she said. An exalted cyclops of the KKK, noble to somebody like Hillary Clinton. Now, if she gave 2 craps about what people think about racism in the Democratic Party, she wouldn't have touched Robert Byrd with a 10-foot pole. But now here's Bill Clinton talking up Robert Byrd.
There are a lot of people who wrote these eulogies for Senator Byrd in the newspapers, and I read a bunch of them, and they mentioned that he once had a fleeting association with the Ku Klux Klan. And what does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. He was a country boy from the hills and hollows of West Virginia. He was trying to get elected. And maybe he did something he shouldn't have done, and he spent the rest of his life making it up. And that's what a good person does. There are no perfect people. There are certainly no perfect politicians.
Yeah, tell that to Kavanaugh. You see what he did there? He brought up the KKK association, said it was fleeting, and that's just what country boys do. Well, I grew up in Kentucky, and I never joined the KKK. And I'm sure I could have, but never had any interest. So there you go. Being a country boy is not an excuse for going out in the middle of the night and hanging black people from trees and setting them on fire, Mr. Clinton. Why stop there? Why don't we wheel Obama up to the podium at the same event, and he can talk about this wonderful human being, Senator Robert Byrd.
Years from now, when I think of the man we memorialize today, I'll remember him as he was when I came to know him. His white hair full, like a mane, his gait steadied with a cane, determined to make the most of every last breath. The distinguished gentleman from West Virginia could be found at his desk until the very end doing the people's business.
What a complete cuck. As a black man, he could stand there and admire this guy's white mane and his cane when he knows that behind those eyes is an exalted cyclops of the KKK who created his own chapter in West Virginia. Complete cuck. Maybe that's what people miss about Obama is the cuckery. He had a way with cuckery. He had a way of leading people into being complete suckers. All right, so let's play one last clip here just to show that not all black folks in this country are cucked by the Democratic Party. This is from RT regarding when the super predator comments came out during the election.
She was confronted over that particular statement by a young African-American woman during a campaign stop in Minnesota. After a heated exchange, here's how Clinton ended the encounter.
Well, then why don't you go run for something then? I'm working for good. Well, good. Good luck to you.
That young woman isn't the only one frustrated by Hillary Clinton's attitude towards minorities. During a fundraiser in Charleston, her speech was interrupted.
If you haven't seen the video, Hillary's standing there making a speech, and there's a young girl in front of her holding a sign that says, "We must bring them to heel," which may be one of the most racist statements I've heard in a long time, that she just off the cuff said that, and then went back and hung out with the old white mane Robert Byrd back in the day in '96, and they all laughed behind taxpayer doors about cucking the United States. Well, we're getting cucked here locally, and I'm going to talk to Virstyne Henry after the break here about how Mayor Adler, the Austin City mayor, liberal mayor, who stood around like a zombie during this entire water debacle that we've just experienced and finally came out of on Sunday. His city council, it wasn't him. He was elected mayor in 2015, but we've had a liberal city council, and in 2012 they tried very hard to shoot down building a water treatment plant that we desperately needed during this flooding we just had. And now Mayor Adler is complaining that a racist symbol, Pepe the frog symbol, which he doesn't understand, which they have determined is the alt-right, as the nation continues to be suckered. They're going to use these symbols. They're going to use these terms. They don't even know what they mean. There's no basis for them. They just throw them out there. Of course, you turn on the news, and they're going to tell you what they think these symbols mean or these terms mean. Anyway, we'll get into that right after the break with Virstyne Henry from the YouTube channel TrutherTalk, right here on Silicon Valley's bastard child show, Jon Bowne Politix.
Since the Pepe the Frog cartoon was declared a hate symbol by the Anti-Defamation League 6 months ago, the cartoonist sued InfoWars for copyright infringement. Creator is angry that while the cartoon wasn't intended to be racist or anti-Semitic, it has been co-opted by far-right extremists, particularly for that use. And that's why people noticed when a local political action committee sent out a video with that image in it.
KXAN's Jacqueline Powell caught up with Indy Austin leadership about this controversy.
Indy Austin posted this video clip saying Mayor Steve Adler is playing a shell game. In the video, under one of the shells, it's Pepe the Frog. The PAC's co-founder says she and the person who edited the video didn't realize.
We didn't even quite see what it was, and we had taken a video off the internet.
But Mayor Adler didn't write it off that easily. He's Jewish. The cartoon has been co-opted and often used as a hate symbol against Jews. In a statement, he said, "I am troubled that a symbol used in anti-Semitic communications by members of the alt-right throughout the United States would now appear in an Austin campaign. And I'd like to know why it was featured in a video produced by a PAC that is attacking me. Linda Curtis says as soon as someone contacted her group pointing out Pepe, the video was taken down and replaced with this new video.
We do agree with the mayor that there is no room for hate speech in Austin. It's understandable that people would be sensitive about this right now, especially, and so we very much apologize and did not mean to offend anybody.
Jacqueline Powell, KXAN News.
Indy Austin has been campaigning against Adler's support of the city's Major League Soccer stadium deal. Circuit of the Americas founder Bobby Epstein, who's also against the deal, had donated $24,000 to the PAC. And today he announced he was pulling his financial support from Indy Austin following that video.
All right, Virstyne Henry from TrutherTalk on YouTube and TrutherTalk.com, and where else can we find you?
On Steemit and BitChute. I'm uploading more to BitChute now. Because it sucks up anything that we upload to YouTube goes straight to BitChute.
Were you on Gab?
So Steemit, huh?
Were you on Gab?
I technically got an invitation, but I didn't keep it up. Yeah. And I'm kind of on Facebook. I'm in Facebook limbo right now. I'm on Facebook, but I just use it really. We post stuff. Yeah, we post like articles and stuff, but I'm not really. I'm focusing on YouTube lately more.
Yeah. Well, so what do you think about Mayor Adler and his attack on Pepe the Frog that he threw up? You know, I'm Jewish, and this offends me, and it's a simple deal. Right?
What a weak-minded guy. You know, I don't think that. I mean, he's a mayor, and he's so sensitive to that. That's ridiculous to me. I think it really is. And the fact that what you showed me too, I've seen the meme and I know that it was supposed to be offensive and I didn't really know why. But, you know, then I just learned not too long ago it was associated with like white supremacy because InfoWars used it. Is that right?
Yeah, the owner of it sued InfoWars over having used it. And, you know, the thing is that any cartoon can be used for a hate symbol. In fact, Mickey Mouse was regularly used, and it goes even deeper than that. Mickey Mouse, there's a Norwegian art archivist that actually may have found some Disney images that were drawn by Hitler himself. Like Hitler was into Disney, but on top of that.
But then who doesn't like Disney, dude? Like Disney was cool. Like, you know what I mean? Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm cutting you off. I just want to say though, I want to interject and say that I think that there are people that just take stuff way too out of context, and I mean, it's a cartoon, and yeah, like you said, it could be used as, you know,
well, I don't think he.
Fine.
And in the ad, somebody picks up and says what he's doing is a shell game. I don't even think he's doing a shell game. That guy's completely asleep. But they pick up the shell, and underneath it is Pepe the Frog. If it had been Mickey Mouse, nobody would have said anything. But let me just real quick. A lot of people don't realize that Disney was questionably into the Nazi Party after what was called in 1938. It was called Kristallnacht. It was the Nazi assault on the German Jews. It was a month after Disney invited Hitler's main filmmaker, Leni Riefenstahl, to America to visit the Disney studios. So, I mean, this is a month after the Jews are attacked. So that's the thing is, like, nobody knows any history. Nobody really knows the association. They don't understand that Pepe is kind of a catch-all meme intended to have a very kind of vague, just kind of a tongue-in-cheek presence in the cultural landscape and represent individual citizenry, you know, ethics and viewpoints and so on and so forth. And of course, it's going to be hijacked by neo-Nazis. It'll be hijacked by everybody. but then it's used by the left, who have dubbed myself and yourself, we're the alt-right, right?
I know, right? That's crazy.
Yeah,
and I mean, I used to watch InfoWars when I lived in Taiwan, and they had he would interview the Black Panthers. Nobody was doing that. I've learned a lot about Black history from watching Alex Jones and InfoWars. So when they say that you guys are alt-right and that you're white extremists, it's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
How deep the narrative goes and how people are easily controlled that just believe the mainstream media. It's actually also very terrifying because I'm like, are you kidding me? Even when who's that, Tom Brokaw came out and said that Alex Jones was an unalloyed racist.
Yeah. And
they had no footage of him, and in fact, there's footage of him going and protesting the Ku Klux Klan.
Right.
by himself.
By himself.
By himself.
Yeah.
Who does that?
And we've had Larry Pinckney on regularly, and Larry Pinckney is pretty much a dear friend at this point to a few of the people at InfoWars, myself included. And Larry is just a great, just open-minded American who happened to be a member of the original Black Panthers and was subjected to COINTELPRO. Has had his amazing story about, how he was basically under attack by our government. And, but they would, Alex has even gone so far as to go to Louis Farrakhan's office.
Yes, I saw that. That was a great interview. I didn't even know that Louis Farrakhan played the violin.
Right.
That's what I learned in that interview.
Well, he's a
that I
calypso
did it.
singer. He was originally a calypso musician.
Oh wow, yeah. So so he has that. He had a Martin Luther King's niece on because she's a senator in Georgia, right? That if I believe?
That's right.
And so I would watch. He had a Prodigy from Mobb Deep on.
Mm-hmm.
And he had, he's had amazing people of all races on his show, but I know that he's had some really intimate, cool interviews with Black people, which Anderson Cooper's not interviewing those people,
No.
Yeah, they're gonna, spread rumors that he's racist, and they're people that just believe it.
Well, he's in a room with Don Lemon. He's in a room with Don Lemon doing God knows what. But, but those people are all cucked, and they're also trying to sucker the American public, and we see through it. It's not just me and you that are awake.
Yeah.
I think anybody with any kind of street sense or any kind of survival instinct can see through it. But then again, there's still plenty of people that believe the Democratic Party is, the be-all to end-all of saving all of the disenfranchised Americans,
But the so-called quote-unquote educated people are the worst. I mean, I'm college educated. I just have a Bachelor of Arts degree. But a lot of the people that have, gone to Ivy League schools and, because they've been brainwashed to think that they're already better and that they're already, more knowledgeable, and they kind of have this idea that they're the ones that should rule and that they know better. So I feel like even people in my family that are on that level, have that issue. Well, they're intelligent in other ways, but they have such a blind spot with what's going on with the media and the manipulation of it. And I think a lot of it is pride because they don't want to admit that they're bamboozled. So they just know. They'd rather just know or think that they know instead of being proved wrong.
At a certain point, I think, once you do get up into the upper echelons of education, that you do run the risk of brainwashing yourself to the point to where you will never accept another viewpoint because you think that your views are the highest and most educated and knowledgeable, when in reality it's amazing that so many educated people are members of the Democratic Party, when if you go back to the history of the Democratic Party and the history of the Republican Party, and I'm not trying to go to bat for the Republican Party, but the Democratic Party, there is no more of a racist party in America than the Democratic Party. They created the Klan.
Yeah.
They
very pro-slavery.
they were pro-slavery. They voted for Dred Scott. I mean, go on and on and on. Voted against the Civil Rights Act. You know, so now what is the Democratic Party? Now you go and ask somebody that's a Democrat, what is the Democratic Party? And it's interesting the answers you get, because a lot of people, Democrats, are really confused as to what they are.
Well, because people never researched like I did. I mean, we just, there's a lot of stuff. And I'm a little off topic, but, I think I've said this before, but my awakening was through the corruption in the medical industry. And it really made me realize when I was waking up to a lot of stuff about vaccines and cancer and stuff, that I just was basically memorizing and regurgitating stuff that I had heard on TV, that I'd been told by my doctor. I never really read a study on certain, I never looked stuff up, for myself. And I see the same pattern happening with politics. People just, or I interview people on my channel too. I've been interviewing people that are, like Black, Latino, and Asian on, them leaving the Democratic Party. And they all say that they never really thought about why they vote Democrat. They just knew because of their race or their sex that they were just supposed, or their sexual orientation, that they were just supposed to vote Democrat. No questions asked, So we just accepted this brainwashing. And I think it really takes courage for people who decide to break the mold and step out and start, asking questions and thinking for themselves.
Well, and I'll say this real briefly, and then we'll move on to the next topic. But I think our society is insanely polarized, and I think a lot of it has to do with technology in Silicon Valley. And just as an example, after I dropped my daughter off this morning, I was driving back home, and I noticed there were kids standing out waiting for the bus. And I remember when I waited for the bus, you hung out and talked to everybody that was there at the bus stop. But I saw
on the phone.
Yeah, but I saw a white kid sitting on the ground staring at his iPhone, and next to him was standing up was what looked like a Middle Eastern kid staring at his iPhone. And they were right next to each other, and they weren't having a conversation at all. So everyone lives in these little bubbles of their own making, and then those bubbles get insulated by the beliefs of other people around them. When, truth is trying to knock on the door at all times, and when it finally tries to bust through the door, somebody like you or me tries to present this truth and bust through their little bubble, they react with mental illness. It's not.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Like my brother has basically tried to convince my mom that I'm mentally ill, and thank God my mom just thinks it's ridiculous. Like she's not trying to choose sides, but my brother honestly believes that. Yeah. Like he'll say stuff. Oh, I'm worried about her. I'm like, I'm not worried about you. If you're choosing to be ignorant, that's you. You're a grown man. You're an adult. But me, you know what I mean? I'm not I'm not losing sleep over his, willful ignorance.
Right.
Because he has a lot of pride.
And it's not your job to fix him either, I mean, if people if people can't accept the truth and come to the table, then they do have a mental illness. This whole thing about Trump, people got to realize soon that this is a populist president we have, and by that, he's not a politician. This guy comes out of the business world and enters politics and is doing things today, possibly signing an executive order to stop anchor babies. I mean, he's doing things that would kill anyone else. And that takes us to our next subject.
I'm sorry.
That takes us to the next topic, which is you just put up this video, illegal alien invasion mob, and you want to explain the video, or you want me to just go ahead and play it and then talk about it afterwards?
Yeah, play it and we talk about it afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, here we go.
And I'll tell you why I laughed after too.
All aboard the Caravan. the caravan. They march with children in their hands. They think they have a solid plan to walk into the promised land. Some people want to let them in. They think it's just a venial sin. That's BS. Just confess. They're not refugees, okay? If they were, they would have taken refuge in the next safest country, Mexico. But no, they want to come to America. What are they running from? Poverty and gang violence? We either have that in America right here. Where do we get to run to? How about this? How about I start a caravan of homeless youth from the inner city, from all over the U.S., headed straight to Beverly Hills? You think they'll stop us or let us walk right in? They show us just the scantily clad and not the ones who are doing bad. This makes a lot of us hopping mad. Who told them that they could parade and we will be their special aid? It's not a ramble, it's a raid. There's someone's puppets that are being played. Sedition! Acquisition. The acquisition of America. Can you vouch for all those people? I sure can't. Why is it the fake news media storing this? Did you see the footage of the man handing money out to people on the street? Did you see the videos of them getting out of trucks and vans and getting out and walking from the camera? Yeah, some are good and some are bad. But you know what? If you honestly think all these people are good and they aren't being guided or helped, you are extremely, extremely naive.
All
Oh,
right.
thank you. I just want to let you know I laughed. I didn't want to leave you hanging there, but when you said anchor baby,
Yeah.
I was reminded of that. I think it was Jim Acosta. Maybe it was another reporter that Trump had. When he used the word, and the guy the reporter was like, "Well, isn't there should be a more culturally appropriate word?" And he's like, "Well, do you have?" Well, he was like, "What should I say?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know." He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go with anchor baby." I thought that was the best stuff ever. So sorry, I just wanted to clarify that. I don't want you to think I was laughing at you.
Well,
and
no. So of course not. I thought you were laughing with me.
Yes, I was.
So the point you made in there in that video, I have my own separate point, but your point is even more intense than mine, I think, which is what if we just gathered all the homeless people and started walking directly into Beverly Hills, which, I mean, they've pretty much taken over San Francisco as it is, but yeah, that's the truth. I mean, what about the 40 million people in this country living under the poverty level? What about, all of the children, the orphan children in this country? What about the veterans that are homeless? What about Americans? What about us?
Yeah.
And
well, let me tell you too. This is the thing that's frustrating me. Part of the time I work as a driver for I don't know if I should say the ride-sharing company. Oops, I'm sorry. Just leave that out. Sorry. Lyft, okay? And I'm driving all of these people around Austin who are talking about, they're Beto supporters, and they have all of these leftist talking points, and of course they're sympathizing with the caravan, and I have to hold my tongue a lot, But I'm picking them up from their houses in Lakeway, or, somewhere in a richer area of Austin, where if they're invaded by these immigrants aren't going to be moving to their neighborhood, overcrowding their schools, making their property value, you could say up or down depending on the situation, or, giving them traffic. So it's just really ticking me off, because I come from California, and a lot of people are complaining about all the people coming from California to Texas, but a lot of people are coming here because California is becoming ridiculously expensive.
well, there's a new report that the middle class is almost completely gone in California.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, the thing is too, the last neighborhood I lived with my mom a little while before I moved. When I came back from overseas, and she's living in a 1-bedroom apartment, paying it was over $1,000 for rent, and there are people that are illegal in the building, and they're maybe 5 or 6 to an apartment, maybe more, maybe a little less, but there are a bunch of people that are crowded in, who have different jobs, and they're able to make that rent. And, you know, then the owners know that they can charge more. So, you know, it drives people that are, you know, like my mom and my other friends that are struggling, you know, out.
Right.
And you know, and now you're like, okay, well, I can't even live anymore. You know, have a basic place to live. And these people, you know, then they want to complain about the traffic. And, you know, I told people, I say this and people get uncomfortable, but, you know, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and the traffic wasn't that bad. And I know a lot of people come to California for the entertainment industry, but also you have to take into effect that we're 3 hours away from Mexico. We have a lot of illegal immigrants, and that's part of the problem. And as a teacher, I also taught in schools, and there's a huge problem with overcrowding in schools and the quality and the quantity of education that people get because of that, or children get because of that. And so it brings all these problems that a lot of these people that live, you know, up on the cloud nine, you know, are just unaware of. And they might as well just tell us to let us eat cake, because that's how I feel, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's a huge percentage now of non-English speaking residents in the United States. I think the last number was, let's see, well, there's millions, according to the Washington Post. 63.2 million non-English speaking residents in the United States. 63 million.
Yeah, and what country can you do that? Can you go and just move in and not? Well, you can kind of get away with that if you're an English teacher and just keep renewing your visa to be an English teacher. But if you want another job other than that, you have to learn how to speak the language.
I mean, it all comes down to those basic things, but you know, and just respecting. People don't respect or understand our Bill of Rights, our Constitution. They don't need to learn it. But there's another side to it, and that side is what's really happening to these illegal aliens when they come here. And it was none other than the left's, lauded Washington Post that did a story during the Obama years where Obama was allowing people to come in, and the traffickers, they don't stop at the border. They're inside the United States. And so what happened, what this story was talking about was they had brought in women, children, men, and put them in this debeaking chicken factory in Ohio and put them all in a trailer park. Some of them had to live underneath the trailer. It gets cold in Ohio. And some of them had to live underneath the trailer with nothing but a bucket for a bathroom and a mattress under there.
What?
And then, and this is all true. At least.
No, I believe it. I know there's sex trafficking and drug trafficking and satanic, murders.
It's actual modern slavery, and it's ignored. Yeah. And so these people are working at this debeaking factory, and they're working in horrible conditions. And then at the end of the week, they're traffickers, they're masters, as it were. In 2018, well, this is back in 2015, but now happening right now, they come and take their paychecks. They can't even keep their paychecks, and this is happening in the United States. And so,
oh my God,
that's the thing is, you don't cross the finish line when you come into the United States. El Salvador. All the MS-13 network, the cartels. We've got the cartel right here in Austin. You know, the cartels they have hubs all over the United States. You know, why would we allow more of that to come into when we're trying to fight that problem? But my other take on this was. My favorite movie of all time is The Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa. It's this great film. If you've never seen it, The Magnificent Seven, the Western was based on it. But it was made in 1954, and it's basically about these impoverished villagers who are being bullied by the local bandits. You know, they're taking all their food, and they've got no recourse but to go find a samurai to help them fight these bandits. Well, they get 7 samurais together, and they end up training these villagers on how to fight these bandits, and they beat the bandits, but all but 2 of the samurai die fighting them. And at the end of the movie, one of the last living samurai says, you know, we didn't win, you won. The victory is yours. The victory goes to the villagers because we all died, you know, fighting for you. But that is the only possible outcome that should even be entertained, is that if the Honduras, if they're going to allow, another quote from the movie, somebody says, you know, about the bandits, if you allow wolf to bite your leg, they'll come back later and eat the rest of you. And that's the thing, is why should we bow down to a bunch of thugs and gangs in the Honduras who are running their people out of there, and in Mexico and in El Salvador? Why is it why do we have to pay taxes? Why do we have to pay for the percentage of these people that are in these prisons now? A huge percentage of illegal aliens in prisons. Why do we have to pay for all of the services that they enjoy when they come here, that they're not paying for, just because there's a bunch of douchebags back in their country that are forcing them out? So my only solution to the left, or anybody that gives a crap about helping these people, is then let's figure out a 7 samurai situation and go into these countries with the help of the government. I mean, we subsidize the Honduras alone, $133 million a year we give that government. Yeah. And they're just going to send thousands of people holding a flag, burning the American flag on the way, putting a swastika on the American flag, setting it on fire, and then demanding that we let them in the country. At what point are we going to reach a warlike level? Because there are children in this country that are being physically molested and raped, and no one's talking about it. And they're being raped by illegal aliens. Now, I know that sounds shocking, but it's the truth, and it's happening all over this country, and no one's talking about it. There are people being murdered by illegal aliens. There are something like 20,000 Americans die every year in car accidents.
Well, my friend's son was just stabbed last week by an illegal alien.
There you go.
At the bus stop. So yeah, and I know, like, but you know, it's so weird, John, because I feel like the people that are so triggered and so ignorant, they can't make the distinction when we say stuff like that. We're not talking about every single illegal immigrant. You know what I mean? Like, they get so mad and they're like, they're not all bad. What are you saying? We never said that.
Right.
But it's also, if you're getting away with it, you know, then why not? You know what I mean? If you're not going to get in trouble, you're not going to go to jail if you're a criminal, you know. I mean, they have less of a risk of getting, you know, punished than people that are born here do.
Well, and then there's a wider issue, is like, so who really wants this immigration thing to happen? And we've known for years that the United Nations has a replacement program that has history in the Kalergi plan.
Oh, just about to see, yeah.
And so there's an effort by the elite to have a voting population that doesn't think for itself. I mean, look at us. We're the enemies. We're racist. We're the dregs of society. We're a basket of deplorables. And what are we? We're just people. We're just Americans who are concerned about our rights being taken away from us. And yet we're the bad people.
And our safety. And our safety.
Yeah.
You know?
And our future.
And and our life and our way of life here. You know, so it's
That's
like,
it.
you know, what people also need to do is make the distinction between like deep states, right? So I would say every country pretty much has a deep state, because there are people in other countries too that sell their own people out for financial gain or power, and people forget that, you know.
Yeah.
Like I was talking to this guy about Mexico and stuff, and then I brought up the cartels and stuff. He was talking about white people. I was like, yeah, some white people, but there's also people in Mexico that sold out their own people. And he got like mad. I'm like, it's true. And in all this stuff, you know, even
that's such a cucked mentality to just immediately go after white people. Man, the black dude behind you that you trust could stab you in the back at any minute. You know?
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, like anybody. I mean, it's not. I don't know. I also think that people cling to racism and sexism and stuff like that as a defense mechanism, because it makes them feel safer, because they feel like they can distinguish who is dangerous and who isn't. But you really kind of have to look at people's character. You have to look at how they act. I've been watching.
I mean, and it just rings true. I mean, it's an absolute truth. It's all about character. And and as Americans, we're a little bit more sensitive to that, because everybody in our society that we've grown up with, I mean, the fact that people are being separated by race in America is so ludicrous, because we've all grown up together. You know, yes, segregation is a problem, yes, but we've always the American ideal, the American dream was that the best of us raises to the top, and everyone's always supported that, especially nowadays, you know.
Yeah.
But to separate people based on race, like you said, is a defense mechanism, and it's completely ludicrous, because we as Americans, we're just this giant gumbo. And you look at someone like Elizabeth Warren, who wants to use, what was she, It was like 0.002% Cherokee or something. And I mean, she's basically, I'm actually more Native American, and I'm not even Native American than she is. You know what I mean? I mean, and it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. Like, to have pride in your DNA and your race and all that, that kind of separates you. Why don't we just have pride in being Americans? You know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, are you?
Yeah, definitely.
Instead of, you know, I'm this, that, and the other, you know, and so now I have some kind of power over you, you know, like, you know, but the thing is she completely insulted the Cherokee Nation. They don't allow people into the Cherokee Nation based on her DNA. You're not. In fact, you know what she did was completely against. She doesn't know any of their traditions, any of their language. And then she writes a cookbook with her husband with a bunch of crab recipes in it. You know, like on the Trail of Tears, they were eating crab.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. It's comical, right? Everything that the left has been doing has been blowing up in their face, you know?
Yeah.
It's been great. It's been great. You know, I just, I don't know. I can't believe the level of pride and just audacity a lot of these people have. And this, to me, goes back to what I was talking about, but character. Why would you vote for people with character like this, you know? And going back to the immigrants, you know, a lot of these people, you know, even if they're not, like, just say all of them are good, right? But they're going to come here, just for the sake of argument, saying all of them, they're going to come here, what, they don't speak English, okay, so what jobs are they going to get, you know?
Right.
And then people are going to have to resort to crime in order to survive, and maybe women in prostitution. you know, and then, like you were talking about earlier, the cartels and other underground factions are going to take advantage of those people.
Right.
You know, and there's also disease. I'm probably going to make a video on that because I want to actually go into it.
I've been looking at that for a long time. There are a bunch of the kissing bug. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the kissing bug, but if you get bit, and they're here in Texas, they're in the lower portion of the United States now because they've been brought up by a lot of these immigrants from Central America and South America. It's this bug that it bites you, and it basically gives you this sickness, this lethargic sickness that slowly kills you over like 20 years. And those bugs are here. There's also a lot of diseases that are in cattle that were eradicated, back in the 50s that are back in the United States. There's
well, you know what it is too. Like, let me see if I can explain this the fastest way I can. But a lot of people also get offended by that because when people say, "Oh, they're going to bring diseases," they think of it as a racial thing, saying that they're just because they're a third world country or they're brown that they're dirty. But usually, when you have bad infrastructure, when you don't have clean water and plumbing, you're susceptible to certain diseases. Not all diseases, but certain diseases, depending on what virus or bug or bacteria you are getting in whatever situation you're in. And if you don't get that checked, you're going to bring it with you. Even when I went and lived in Taiwan, first day we went to get a medical check to make sure we were okay to stay. And when you go to foreign countries, customs, you have to go through customs. But one of the things they look for physically is signs of if you're ill. If they think that you're ill, when you're coming in the country and get off the plane or boat or whatever, you're not coming in the country. Right. You know? Because they can't, either you're a contagion or you're not going to be able, if you're coming to work, you're not going to be viable to work like that documentary Forgotten Ellis Island about the European immigrants. Because there were some people in my comment section, they would get mad and they were like, "Oh, but don't forget the diseases that the white man brought." I'm like, that's true, but you know what? When they got off the boat, first place they went to was to the hospital to see if they had diseases or if they were mentally ill. And if they were sent straight back home. You know?
Yeah.
So,
and now we're seeing new cases of polio. We're seeing, the Black Plague is actually reared its ugly head in Colorado a few times.
Well, I would say we can do a whole nother thing on polio. I can't go into that now because I would need more explanation so your listeners don't think I'm crazy or far-fetched. But I wouldn't say. I think that's from something else.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. But like leprosy and these are the kissing bugs and some other.
See how easy that was?
Huh?
See how easy that was? You have more information on it? So I went, yeah, okay, I'd like to hear it. See how easy that was?
Okay, yeah.
I mean,
like, you're a liar. You're a denialist.
Yeah, you're a racist for saying that about polio, No, I've got an open mind, and I'm willing to learn new information and accept the fact that I don't know everything.
Yeah. And this goes back to the indoctrination of the people that are, highly educated, because I'm saying they're some of the worst people to even try and come to grounds with, because they've been brainwashed to think that they know everything.
Right. Right.
They don't have open minds.
Well,
they can say the words "I have an open mind," but they don't really. Their actions don't show that they do, the way they treat other people that aren't as educated as them.
Right. Well, so we experienced. You live in Austin. I live in Austin. We experienced this boil water advisory, and I don't know if you caught. We had severe flooding here. It rained forever, and then all of the lakes rose and the dams burst and. All the silt, and at some point they were thinking maybe sewage had gotten in the water, but all of the silt at the very least had gotten in, so they weren't able to treat the water. So we had to turn our faucets off and boil water for about 7 days, and at some point they had all of the local LCRA and the city manager and the mayor spoke to the public and assured everybody that how everything was going. Our mayor got up there and mumbled a bunch of stuff about warder. He kept calling it warder. It was the most unenergetic, poorest example of leadership I've ever seen. And then he went and stood in the back while the press asked questions, and he wouldn't, like a real leader would jump up front and at least designate who should answer this question or that question or answer it yourself, And not only that, we got an election going on right now. I mean, and he's
I'm like,
running for re-election.
You're scared of a cartoon frog. I mean, I'm not surprised,
Yeah, and so we barely
barely
hear from him. And then back in 2012, we had a vote to have this fourth water treatment plant built, and the liberal city council didn't want to do it. They want to spend money on soccer stadiums and things for themselves, but they don't want to spend money on a water treatment plant, or they still haven't come to terms with the local police after a year of debating whether or not they're going to give them a raise. So the police have the lowest morale they've ever had, and it's all due to this leftist city council that we have. And so he stood there in the back, and it was completely horrendous to watch that this is who's in charge of the city I'm living in. And then today I turn on the news, and he's just got the loudest voice, and he's upset that he was insulted by a cartoon that he doesn't even understand.
Yeah, these people are so self-centered and just, wow.
Yeah.
It's a cartoon. Like,
it's
is it
mental
gonna
illness.
hurt you? It's so ridiculous.
At what point does, because what they're hearing from what they would label the alt-right, you and I, we're the alt-right.
Yeah.
Although I find that actually being labeled that highly offensive. I'm just an American. I'm one of these deplorables, one of these dregs of society, a super predator. I'm whatever it is.
Hey, I'm a super predator.
Yeah, you're a super predator. That's what
we call black people.
Yeah. I don't
don't take my oppressive label, John. I'm offended by that.
And by the way, earlier in the show, I played a clip between Mayor de Blasio. I did a segment you'll hear when you hear the show about. I did about 20 minutes on Hillary's comment the other day that she made at the was it a diversity meeting? Did you hear this comment she made?
No, I missed that. What did she?
So she's being interviewed, and the interviewer, who's she's a pretty decent interviewer. I think she's the same lady that interviewed Mark Zuckerberg. And I just say real quick, if anybody hasn't watched Frontline, the Facebook Frontline that was on last night, part 2 is going to be on tonight. You got to see this thing. You're probably going to want to shut down your Facebook after seeing it. But anyway, moving on from that, just please check that out because that's huge information. But she asked Hillary Clinton and mistakes who she's talking about. She says, what did you think about Cory Booker when she should have said Eric Holder? She says, what do you think about Cory Booker saying when they go low, we kick them? And Hillary says, oh, you mean Eric Holder? And she says, oh, yeah, Eric Holder. And then Hillary says, yeah, I know they all look alike. I
know she's a real racist. She's a real racist. Had Donald Trump, had Donald Trump said that, oh my God, we would never hear that.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, if that was a Republican woman that said that, she would have been.
If it was like Ann Coulter.
If Ann Coulter said that, she may have been fighting for her life to get out of the building. But instead, the crowd has this cucked, mentally ill reaction to what she says. Because and you can tell in the reaction, it's almost like a celebration goes off. Because they're celebrating the fact that internally they're all racist. The left is is racist. You know, it's like the gay guy that's gay, and he can't ever accept it. He can't. So everybody, you know, every guy he runs into is gay. You know what I mean? He's always constantly saying that guy's gay. But it turns out he's the one that's gay. You know, so I mean, I think that's the mindset of the left. You know, so Hillary, I go on to show that she really is racist, and you can hear all that in the beginning of the show. But she makes a comment with Mayor de Blasio, a little joke. They're up there with the crew from Hamilton, the Broadway play, and he makes the joke that he's married to a black woman, so he's a Democrat, so apparently he thinks it's okay that he makes jokes like this, but nobody else can. And so he says, "I'm sorry I was late. I'm on CP time." And I didn't even know what CP time was. You know, because
color people time.
Because I'm not racist. And so I had to go look it up. And I mean, they're trafficking in all of this racist terminology that's funny to them. You know.
Well, you know, I mean, I honestly have used that with like all my black friends and stuff, and my family members. So
it's fine if it's a joke.
But
it's funny, but
it's funny, yes.
But if you're the leader of the Democratic Party that's supposed to be so PC, you may want to skip the racist jokes. You know.
Well, I'm just offended by the double standard. That's what I'm offended by. You know what I mean? I feel like people do make racist jokes and stuff all the time, but the thing is, people aren't honest about it. Even when Trump was talking about grabbing women by the pussy, obviously, if you listen to the whole conversation, they were talking about, you know, gold diggers, and it's true. It's very true. I'm from LA. I know this. You know, women throw themselves at rich men, and they'll let them do anything to them as long as they can have some of their money.
I don't believe anyone was really actually offended by that. You know,
no, I wasn't.
Pornography.
I couldn't believe he said that, but I was like, dang, that's kind of funny. It's true. It made me laugh, actually.
Pornography is like one of the highest. The pornographic websites are some of the highest visited websites in the United States. They're right underneath Google and all that. I find it really hard to believe that if the majority of the United States is visiting pornographic websites on a regular basis, that Trump, before he became president, made a snide comment like that really actually shocked anybody. You know, I'd say that most of this country people make comments like that all the time. So
yeah, exactly. And I've said stuff about white people. I know people. I think that's just human nature, you know. Yeah. But at the end of the day, in the situation, I feel like what I am offended by is the double standard. It's like this control thing, because it still becomes like, oh, well, I can make that, but you can't. Oh, you're telling me what to do. Oh, you're trying to control me. You know?
Right. You're trying to brainwash me. And that's the thing is we won't be conditioned. And that was another thing Hillary wanted. She was going to send these men to re-education camps. And, you know, that's their dream. They have this tyrannical totalitarian dream.
It's like a reverse of that TV show, All the Women Are Oppressed. I can't think of the name. That TV show that people's raving about, where the women are slaves or something.
Oh, really? I don't know. I don't watch.
Is that what I can't think of? It's The Handmaid's Tale. I've never seen it, but I've heard people talk about it.
Yeah, actually.
But you're saying Hillary wanted that, but with men?
Yeah.
To send in men to education camps?
Yeah.
Oh, what an evil demon, dude. I hope in my lifetime I get to see her exposed and she has been exposed, but just pay.
Well,
you know, I really want to see her get on trial and get locked up, you know?
Well, that's where we're at, too. I mean, all of the, you know, and there's a lot of doubt whether or not something will get done. But I don't know. The momentum's there more than it's ever been, that after these midterms, that people will be held accountable for what they've done. And Hillary's got a ton of the Judicial Watch, all of the stuff that they've gotten on her as far as her emails and how, I don't know if you saw a couple of months ago that her emails, or her server being wide open to the Chinese government.
Chinese, yeah, she's a spy. She's the one, yeah.
Well, not only that, but there were spies that were working undercover that were exposed by her server, linked directly to her confidential information, that were murdered. One of them was even killed right in front of the embassy.
Just add those to the list of the Clinton body count.
I know, and so she can sit up there like she's the queen of the United States and make a joke about a race of people, of Americans, and it's fine. It's amazing. It's sickening, but at the same time, it's amazing that this is happening.
Yeah. Well, it's to me, it's really about people's. I think if I have to narrow it down, it's like comes down to people's pride and ego. And maybe I'm making it too simple. I don't know, but I'm just saying, people just don't want to admit that they're wrong. A lot of people, because they don't even have the open mind. When earlier on the conversation I said something you weren't sure, you said, okay, I'm open. As opposed to just you're racist, you're wrong, you're stupid, you're whatever ad hominem attack they want to throw at you because their worldview is challenged. And I think it has a lot to do. It is brainwashing, but also that's one way that you brainwash people is you put their pride into question. Their ego into question, because if you really have a big ego or you're really prideful, you're going to be harder. It's harder for you to have an open mind because you're going to have to compete.
Right.
And a lot of people don't want to do that. Yeah. They'd rather die. They die before they do that, honestly, and not even exaggerating.
Well, it's amazing just how cucked this country really is. I mean, we accept the conditioning. The fact that CNN and MSNBC and even Fox News and just all the mainstream media continues to shove this conditioning down our minds, and we allow it. But it's dying out. Generation Z doesn't pay attention to the mainstream media. They don't even watch television and cable television anymore. It's gonna dissipate over the next 10, 20 years and become something else. And I think social media, again, I can't stress enough to check out the Facebook special on Frontline, second parts tonight. You're going to see that Facebook and the rest of them are on the frontier of technology in this country, and they've made major, major mistakes, huge mistakes that...
Yeah, but are they really mistakes? or is it like they've done major damage and crimes? I don't think it's a real mistake. What
I mean is they should have had more of a long view to see what was coming down the pike. But then they get warned by the Federal Trade Commission and the Attorney General, and they still don't take their advice. And at that point,
But then, I want to interject for a minute. But then, if they are warned and they do it anyway, isn't that like malicious intent?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the point we're reaching now. That's a whole nother... You should watch that, and we'll talk about it next week.
Okay, just Facebook Frontline.
Yeah, go to PBS. PBS's website, and you can watch it for free on their website. The second one's out tonight, but it's Frontline, and you'll see the Facebook. It should pop right up. But we'll talk.
He's such a horrible person. I can't even.
Zuckerberg. Yeah, I'm not even sure if he's human. I mean, he looks like there's like a one of those T2 Terminator robots underneath that skin or something, I mean, he doesn't look. He looks like he's being. Somebody's got a remote control and they're moving him around or something. But
yeah, no, I mean, it's it's kind of mean, but it's not mean, because if you you know what I mean? Yeah, he doesn't look
Well, he got
human.
he
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I think, you know,
He's lost some of his humanity.
in the beginning, it was an innocent thing. He was hoping to get 500 subscribers and, you know, and build something that him and his friends could use. And I think the guy got way too much money, way too much power too fast. And Silicon Valley, the main point that I'll make, and I'll just let this go, but is that people have to realize is that they are, and they know they are, a digital nation state. They aren't really a part. They are cutting themselves off from the United States. They've created their own government, and we're abiding by their laws. No longer the United States laws. We're abiding by their public forum, their public square. They own it now. It's no longer it's no longer the First Amendment. It's what Silicon Valley says it is. So anyway, we'll talk about that next week after you watch it. But following V here, Virstyne Henry from the YouTube channel TrutherTalk and TrutherTalk.com. You can find her on Steemit and BitChute. Is there anything you want to say to Devon Stack?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Devon Stack. I'm a big fan. I don't know if you do interviews. I would love to interview you if you're down. Is that too forward?
No.
Check out my channel.
No, and he'll hear that.
Yeah. Anyway, but keep up the good work. Thank you for all the information. There's so many good people there out there too. I know. I'm having to cut the amount of time that I spend because I get wrapped up in other people's videos, and I have to live my life. I have to do stuff so I can make videos and so I can make money.
Well, and
if I could, I'd watch a bunch of other people's channels. There's so many good people.
And we're all on a razor's edge too. We're all doing this because we believe in our own freedom, and
definitely.
And
I want to empower people personally, but
empower people, yeah. But each week, somebody else, they take somebody else out, and it's just amazing some of the websites they've taken down already. So just hang in there, and we'll get past these midterms, and hopefully things will change, and hopefully it would bring some people to justice. But if you want to support Virstyne or support myself, you can find all that information because we do need the support, and people like ourselves do just disappear because they make us disappear at this point. So, anyway, Virstyne, I'll talk to you next Tuesday, and enjoy that frontline report.
I will. Thanks, John.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. All right, joining me now on Jon Bowne Politix, Devon Stack of blackpill.com. It is a real honor to have him on the show today. Devon has a particular outlook on the reality of our surroundings, and that is the black pill. Thanks for joining me, Devon.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So what is the black pill?
It's kind of funny because there's actually a lot of different opinions on that. When I first got the name, it was because I kind of jumped into politics like a lot of people did, I think, during the Trump campaign. I mean, I was involved in politics and other capacities before that, but I really kind of went all in because I didn't want Hillary to win. And the name I was using as a result was Evil Hillary, which sadly I thought would be irrelevant by now, but apparently it's not. No. And so when I decided to do this,
she's a mythological beast. She'll be around for.
Well, and honestly, it's to me, I'm struggling to see why I don't know why she's not at least charged with something. That was actually part of why I jumped into it too. Is I wanted her to be locked up.
She's still out there on the stump, which is amazing. Yeah.
No, she's still running.
Yeah.
So I picked the name Black Pill because honestly, part of it was at the time, like right before the election, I kind of, like a lot of people did, I kind of went from, I mean, not that I ever believed that news was 100% real, and I always kind of knew that there was more going on than we thought. But Trump's election really kind of, I think, exposed how propagandized we are, and one of the things, that I was getting into is like the kind of, I mean, the pedophilia type stuff that we started uncovering, where that sounded outlandish, you know, like, and they always told you, oh, it's like the satanic panic from the 80s. This is all just hysteria. And there is some of that for sure. But you start digging around in some of these people, Jeffrey Epstein, of course, and you realize that it's a lot worse. It's a lot worse than you are brought up to believe. So that's kind of why I picked that name, and the domain name was available.
Right.
But there's a lot of people that you know, they think it means nihilism, or they think it means, you know, like, oh, we can't do anything. I don't agree with that, but I do agree. The way I look at it is, it's, you know, and I hate to say this, but I think it's true. I think it's not a matter of if things are going to collapse at this point. It's just when. The fuse has already been lit. We're just waiting. We don't know how long the fuse is, but it's been lit.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, to me, that's a black pill, is knowing that, no, we can't turn this around. We can't. We really can't. I mean, I that'd be great, but we really can't. It's never going to be the same America that maybe not even was ever real in the first place. Like, at least the way that it's romanticized, like the 50s and whatnot. That's just never going to be. It's just never going to happen. And so I think that's the black pill for me, is understanding that the ruling class has been deceiving the public for so long that, you know, we can wake up some people, but we're not going to wake everyone up, and certainly not in time before there's some kind of cataclysmic event. I don't know what that'll be, and I don't know how it's going to unfold, but I don't see us fixing this. So the best we can do is try to get as many people ready for it as possible.
So it's basically a hardcore version of the red pill, which
yeah.
The red pill, you can wake up, you take the red pill, you can't ever go back to the blue pill, which is basically being asleep in your happiness and your delightful little marshmallow world. But once you've taken the red pill, for those people that don't understand what the pill lingo is, you know, you're awakened. For me, and then I'll ask you, but for me personally, I was awakened by the knowledge of our Federal Reserve and the history of our Federal Reserve. That was just mind-blowing. And then I started to research everything else. I had actually already, for years, researched Freemasons and the occult just out of interest, but didn't really tie them into our government or the ruling elite. And having that knowledge and being able to fall back on it and apply it to what I learned from the Federal Reserve, that was a massive red pill that I could never turn back from. So what did it for you?
You know, it's a lot, kind of like with you. It was a lot of things. I went through kind of a evolution, I guess, where you know, I used to make fun of 9/11 truthers, for example. I used to think, oh, there's no way anything like that could ever be faked, and I was just a basic bitch Republican. You know, kind of when I was real young, I was kind of like a Rush Limbaugh kind of guy. And slowly, you know, I like Dennis Prager, and just like I listened to talk radio, and that was my, you know, that's where I got my info. I was raised in a very conservative household, and I rebelled against it a little bit for a while. Like when I got a little bit older, I went full on libertarian, and I was like, oh, you know, it's, and I think a lot of people do that. You go from conservative to libertarian. And then now, honestly, I don't even know what I am, because
I don't either. I would just consider myself a really worried American.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I guess a constitutionalist. What are you, some kind of constitutionalist? But I for whatever that means, I believe in the law of the land. I believe in the republic. I believe that the people have the supreme power and the supreme voice. And although that is a dream, the more you learn that we barely have a voice. But it's things like what we're doing right now, and your website blackpill.com, that actually are the remaining voice in this country. So for me, my black pill, the thing that you get the red pill, and then the black pill for me was going through the stages of grief, realizing little by little that my country had died right in front of me and I hadn't even noticed.
Right.
And for me, that's when I think of black pill, that's what I think of. It's just a realization that who you are, your identity as an American. You just did a magnificent video called Land of My Ancestors, filled with all kinds of beautiful B-roll, by the way, and just a great, powerful video. And, I did a similar thing where I did a video, it was about 3 years ago. There was a big uproar about black folks getting reparations for slavery. And it's one thing for the common black person to complain about it and to ask for it. I can probably stomach that, but it was the way the Democrats were using that as a part of their platform, and pushing that on social media, and victimizing black people and turning everybody else into the oppressors and all that. So I'd had enough, and I did a video basically going into the history of the Irish and what they went through. And the New York Times stuck my face right on the New York Times and said everything that I said wasn't true about the Irish, and the Irish were never slaves. They were never indentured servants. But it got so bad that there was a law was passed in the South where the Irish women were being bred with African men. And at that time, African people were a lot more expensive as slaves than the Irish were. And so they were breeding Irish women with African men so they could breed their own type of slave. And they actually had to pass a law to stop it. So just imagine the amount of rape and oppression involved in that, and the New York Times wants to say, none of that ever happened. The Irish have always had it good. Give me a break.
Well, and I think that's one of the things is there's this attitude, and it's not just by the New York Times, it's by a lot of immigrants, new and even some that have just been here maybe one generation or whatever, that don't have that genetic component to it. It's their people that were here literally building the country, so that when it's all collapsing around them, it's not as anxiety inducing, because they don't see this as their homeland. They see this as like, oh, well, this is the place we came because it was better than our homeland. Mm-hmm. And for people like me and people that our families do go back and even predate, in my case, the country, this is my homeland. I don't have, sure, exactly. I have got family that came from Scotland, from England, from Germany, from France, but that, my family's been here for centuries. Yeah. And so when it falls apart, it scares the hell out of me. And I can understand if, you just came here from, I don't know, it doesn't matter, like India, we'll just say, a generation ago. You can always go back to India if this goes to hell in a handbasket. You have somewhere, you know what I mean? A lot of people don't understand the anxiety that it is caused by having nowhere else to go. Like, if this place goes to shit, that's it.
That's the whole thing, is the stigma of, look at your skin, you're white, you're obviously from England. 400 years ago, you know? No,
I'm not going to go back.
I'm
and
from
England sucks.
Virginia.
I wouldn't go back to England now.
I'm from Virginia. I was born in a hospital in Virginia. I've been raised. The only place I've been to is Mexico. You know, I've never even left this country. You know, I'm born and bred here. I'm a part of the soil of this country, whether you want to believe it or not. Doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah.
And then they throw all the guilt of the Native Americans and the all of that. And the imperialism and, you know, all of this history that they use as a weapon, just like they use free speech as a weapon.
They don't understand like what this land means to them. And I'm not saying they can't be patriotic Americans or but what I don't like is when they denigrate these people that founded the country, the people that are our ancestors, and they minimize them and they tear down the monuments made to them, and they distort the history surrounding them, and all the while demonizing their descendants. It's like at a certain point, and I, like you said, I knew when I made that video, I'm not the only one that feels this way. And it was sad to see a lot of comments in that video say, I'm so glad I'm not the only one that feels this way. And it's like, no, and it's sad that white people are so afraid of having any kind of pride in their heritage because they don't want to be called a Nazi or whatever, that there is this, it's just this weird internal suppression of
it's insane.
Pride in your ancestors.
It's insane that we've reached this point because growing up, I grew up in the D.C. area, and I judged everybody by the content of their character just naturally, and that's the way everyone judged. I mean, you knew if somebody was going to knife you and rob you, and you knew if somebody's going to be your friend, and it didn't matter what the color of their skin was. And then growing up in the 70s and the 80s, there was this whole different mindset of we were shaking off the chains of what had happened in the 50s and 60s with the civil rights movement, and we were going to be the next generation, Generation X, and forward. We were going to be the generations that finally, just as Americans, we shed off this layer of lunacy and ignorance, basically, and just judge each other by who we are. You know, instead of looking at each other's skin. But then this next generation comes along and they're duped by the powers that be, by Obama, who's half white, half black. We don't have to go to the birth certificate. We can just go to the fact that the CIA paid for his Harvard education. Most of his education is sealed to this day. The guy was manufactured for a purpose, and he pulled it off. He's a community organizer in the Saul Alinsky mold, and along with Hillary Clinton, who was doing the same. They're all socialist Democrats, and in order to create this following that they needed, in order to push the pillars that had already been had stood for so long, they needed to divide the country, and they did it. They did it with that generation after my generation. And so now we've got this generation out there, and not just that generation, but also there are baby boomers that think this way, and they're, but for the most part, there's a generation out there that is afraid of joking with your black friend about, I can't joke, like there will never be another Blazing Saddles movie. You know what I mean? Those things can't happen. Look at Fat Albert, for crying out loud. A big fat black kid in a junkyard. Imagine them trying to pitch that today, So we've reached this point where we're all supposed to be afraid of who we are. And that can't stand. You can't go through life being afraid of who you are and being afraid of other people based on their skin color and trying to have some kind of discussion with another political activist that's on the other side of the fence from you and trying to have a discussion and yet being called a Nazi and an imperialist and go back to England. You know, I've been told to go back to England. You know, I don't even have a passport, you know, and I'm not an English citizen. I mean, and these are the things that I can say back, but they don't listen. And so we've got this Orwellian bullhorn, giant bullhorn that is just shouting and will not listen. And it's just fear, fear, fear. And it just seems like the Democrats are really digging a hole. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the midterms.
Yeah, and that's another reason why, by the way, I kind of wish Hillary was locked up, because it's like, if we lose the midterms, and who knows how that's going to pan out, but we're already 2 years in and she's not arrested yet. So I'm just blackpilling that. I don't think it's going to happen at all. But you're right. The division is I mean, you're going to always have. I mean, I think tribalism to some extent is just a biological function.
Sure.
And in that you look at people that look like you, and you're programmed to be like, oh, they're like my family. They're my extended family. There's higher trust in neighborhoods that aren't diverse. They've done study after study that show that people don't trust their neighbors and feel more fear day to day when they live in more diverse neighborhoods. And that's, it's just a natural thing. And this diversity experiment that is, I think it's failing, quite frankly. And it
is now. Yeah.
And in Europe too, like you see, you see, Sweden, you see, in London, speaking of go back to England, what England,
Right.
Like,
no, I don't want to go back to England. No, thank you.
And it's like I tweeted out earlier today, there was a picture of the Manchester police dressed up. I don't even know what it's supposed to be, but they're like going around doing a gay pride. I don't even know what you would call it. They're basically dressing up in costumes with rainbows on it and talking to kids about gay pride. And I'm like, you're the police. What is this? You're the police. Why are you? But yeah, I just tweeted out like, hey, this country has just become a Monty Python episode with acid attacks. I mean, that's basically the UK right now.
Yeah.
And so, and their way, if you want to see, what scares me is, and this is true of the culture. So when another video I did recently, I was analyzing videos that had to do with divorce and degeneracy and kind of the effect it had on Western culture. And the film that I reviewed from the UK, which was made in 1965, I mean, it was so degenerate. And so, I mean, I was shocked that it was made in 1965. And I've always thought that in Europe in general, but also specifically in the UK, if you ever want to see where our culture is going to wind up in terms of degeneracy, is just look at the UK, and that's where we'll be in like 10 years. Yeah. And if you really want to see where we'll end up, just look at South Africa, I guess. But in the UK, like if you look at shows from the 1970s, that's how, like, that's the allowable amount of degeneracy, I guess, that would be allowed in American shows in the 1980s and 90s. So there's always some lag that's a product of probably some of the puritanical elements of America that I actually think are good things, but as they erode slower than they're eroded in England.
But the divorce rates are actually going down in this next generation. I think it's a result of being shell-shocked. I don't know.
Well, some of that, though, too, and I don't know for sure, but when I was looking at that, some of that it's because marriage rates are going down.
Right.
So a lot of people just aren't even getting married in the first place.
I
So
remember
that's why
that
the divorce
headline. I
rates are
saw
going
the divorce rates are going down headline, and then I remembered there was a marriage rates are going down headline like a couple of months ago. Yeah, people aren't getting married. Yeah, and they're not having kids.
Because I was looking
either.
at a graph, and it didn't go all the way up to this year, but the graph that I was looking when I was making that video, I was trying to look because I wanted to see like how did this simultaneously happen in every English speaking country, because the divorce rate spiked, like doubled, and in some places more in every single English speaking country.
And this was in the 60s and the 70s, right?
Right. Like
Okay.
in this 10-year span,
Right.
it just boom skyrocketed.
Right.
And
It
and then
was
if you
part
keep
of that
looking
culture.
down the
though.
line,
There was this culture, the baby boomer culture that was coming out of the greatest generation. Of course, that's America, but it seemed as if because I come from a family of divorce, like multiple divorces, and it seemed like everybody I knew, you barely knew anybody that's their parents were still together, and if they were just doing it for the kids, and now this next generation, of course, people got married a lot earlier in their lives. I think a lot of people are, from the statistics, are getting married in their 30s now rather than their 20s. But yeah,
which is also why birth rates have gone down, and that's the problem too. Is the longer you wait for that? Like my mom, she got married, I believe, when she was 19, and my dad, I think, was like 22. And they 9 months later, boom, she was already making babies.
Right.
And they're still married today, and they had
congratulations,
a litter of kids.
Yeah, great.
But I know what you mean though. Growing up, I was the weird one for
Right.
having parents that were
one.
Still
Exactly.
married.
Yep.
And I remember thinking, like, how did this happen? And so we had this cultural shift, and some of it there's other things too, like birth control happened, and women in the workplace happened, and just I think.
But they came from a generation, that baby boomer generation. And I'm just going to generalize that into England. I don't know what they call their generation of the same period over there, but anyway, they came from the greatest generation, and those people stayed married, and so they were this kind of spoiled generation, and it was me, and they got to a point in their lives. Well, I'm 27. I've been with this woman for 7 years, and I need a change in my life. I need a brunette now, a little younger, with no kids, and I'm going to do this.
Find myself.
Yeah, I'm going to find myself, kids. Bye, Dad. And so what happened as a result was Generation X was this punk generation. We were insanely insecure because our parents had left, and you probably had friends like that went through emotional upheaval at some point in their lives and didn't even realize where it came from. And that insecurity, that's why we were so angry at the government. That's why we were so angry at the establishment. The baby boomers think that they were pushing the envelope with free love and Kent State and all that, which, of course, was a dark period in our history, but they gave birth to this next generation and infused us with this insecurity that created this complete unheard of rage towards the establishment. And for myself, I've only been married once, and that's it. I'm done. I look at my daughter and I think, and of course marriages go through thick and thin, and you got to go with the good and the bad. But I look at my daughter and I think, the best thing for her is to have two loving parents that she can always rely on, that makes her feel confident about herself, makes her feel secure in who she is. And as a metaphor, I think that system of divorce that we experienced, the Generation X experience from the baby boomers, that's what's going on with the Democrats and the left and the Americans. They're divorcing themselves from our government in front of us. And the rest of us, the 360 million Americans, we're the children. And we're saying, where are you going? Why is Hirono from Hawaii saying that all men are rapists? All men need to, she said, was it stand up and shut up or something? All men are responsible. They're all responsible for what Kavanaugh's doing. All men are rapists. And he deserves to be put on the Salem witch trial because of the Me Too movement, and sexual abuse doesn't deserve due process, and it goes out the window. We're watching as a country our parents, which is our government, subconsciously divorce.
Well, I would say honestly, I would say McCarthy was right. The communists had infiltrated the government a long time ago, and what we're seeing now is what they've been working at for a really long time.
Sure.
And so it's like a mitosis. They were always trying to separate from us. It's just that they're finally doing it. And that's kind of why I said I think the fuse is lit, because you can't bring these two sides together. There's just nothing that's going to do it. Unless there was like some kind of weird religious movement, or there's nothing that natural, that there's nothing foreseeable, nothing I can think of that would bring a country that is so polarized back together. And it's partially because the left has always been they've always been trying, this is what they've been trying to do. They've always been at war. They have always been at war. If you ever notice, even when I was younger and I was just, a Rush Limbaugh guy.
It goes way back. I mean, the Klan.
Yeah.
The Klan. I mean, the Democrats and the Klan, their history with the Klan. They've always used race as a weapon and victimization as a weapon. Can you give us a bare bones outline of the first book?
Yeah, so basically it's a fictional tale. Like I said, I have to be very clear. This is very fictional, and all the people, if there's any, resemblance to real people and places, it's all coincidental. But basically it's a fictional tale about a couple of people. I guess I'm trying to think of a way to put this. A couple of people that somewhat simultaneously have had enough and try in different ways to basically not start civil war, but kind of get the party started, like wake people up in a way that leads directly to action. And so the book kind of just follows some of these people, and each chapter, or actually it's in some chapters multiple people, but in each chapter I kind of focus on the inner thoughts of the protagonists of that chapter and kind of what they think is wrong with America, and what they would do to fix it.
At one point you say he stood here and he didn't know how long he had stood here. There's kind of caught in this catharsis, this kind of comatose state of where we are now as a society. Everyone's staring into their phones, and
it's like that movie Metropolis when the workers are all getting into the elevator and stuff. It's kind of how I think a lot of people feel, is just they're just going through the motions, they're just taking it, and they're just getting pissed off, and it's just building, and building, and eventually the boiler is going to burst. And so these are, I guess you could say, it's the story of people that try to engineer the burst to their advantage as best as possible, and kind of what happens with them. And it also lightly goes into the ruling class and some of their methods and that sort of a thing. But it's a relatively quick read. It's got great reviews. Let me look. As of last time I checked, it had 100% 5-star reviews, which it wasn't like a ton of reviews.
And it's available on Kindle. Is it available? Let's see. Is it available at Amazon?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, so I didn't want it. Okay, it's got 7 reviews, and they're all 5-star.
Awesome.
Oh no, damn it! I got a 4-star now. Oh well. So basically it's on Kindle and you can get it on paperback on Amazon. But I was trying to go through another company, and then Amazon bought them while I was trying to go through them. Like, it was always my intention to have it available on Amazon.
Yeah.
But because it's like YouTube, it's like I don't like it, but if I want to reach the most people, they got to be pragmatic about it. I mean, I could sit there.
You got to do Audible too.
Yeah, no, and once that's up, like I expect that to do decently. A lot of people have been requesting it, so and it's actually what I would want if it would. I listen to more audiobooks than I read books these days. I've been listening to audiobooks probably regularly for several years now because it's something that I could. Like if I'm doing 3D animation, for example, a lot of that stuff is like making a ship in a bottle. You're not. It's tedious, but you're not having to like really like you're doing some math, but you're not really. You can listen to a book while doing that, and sometimes you'll zone out and you have to rewind it because you're like, "Whoa, I don't even know what's going on in this book anymore," because I've been, worried about the shade of Pepe's green skin or whatever, But it's something you can multitask and do, and with how much time I don't have these days, having audiobooks is just way more convenient. I don't think it sticks in my head as well, to be honest, though. Like when I sit down and take the time to actually read a book and really take it in, which that's another interesting thing. Do you ever find yourself reading a book and you get to the end of the page and then you're about to turn the page and you realize I don't even know what I just read?
And then you go back and you reread it and you're like, that's what I just read. Yeah.
So like you can zone out when you're reading just as easily as you can zone out when you're listening to it, or at least I do. Where I don't even know how that happens. Where your brain, it's just on autopilot. Your brain is just like you get sidetracked. I don't know. I'm just an ADD mess.
No. I know exactly what you're talking about. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, right on. Great to be here, and just let me know, and we can do it again.
All right, take care.
All right.
Bye-bye. You can always find us at dailynewscollective.com, at blablawshow.com, on YouTube at Jon Bowne Politix, on gab.ai at JonBownePolitix, and Twitter at NewsBound.